All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for being here. This is the Kentucky Monthly Climate Perspective on Drought and Hydrologic Conditions webinar for October of 2021. This is hosted by the State Climate Office for Kentucky within the Kentucky Climate Center at Western Kentucky. We have some great partners, including the Kentucky Division of Water and the UK Ag Weather Center. Both Chip Zimmer of the Kentucky Division of Water and Matt Dixon are here today. Chip will be leading our discussion, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to him.
Good morning, everybody, or actually good afternoon, everybody. It still feels like morning. Just some quick general information here. This webinar series is presented by the Kentucky Climate Center at Western Kentucky University in partnership with the National Integrated Drought Information System and is in coordination with the Midwest Drought Early Warning System. Production and delivery of this webinar reflects contributions from many partners, which Megan just talked about, and our next meeting is going to be on November 4th, and I believe Megan's going to be hosting that one. And we are recording this webinar, so you'll be able to go back to the Kentucky Climate Center's YouTube channel and watch that if you so would like to, or if you have somebody you want to show it to. As always, we have the drought impact reporter. Obviously not a lot of drought out there right now, but you can also put wet reports, hydrological impacts as well. So if you see any flooding or anything like that, you can report on that as well. It's a really useful tool for us. So just like normal, we're going to go through the recent conditions, talk about impacts, and then finish off by looking at the outlooks. And over on the left, you see we have a picture from the beginning of September of really nice sunrise in Clark County, some fog down there in the valley. And just from a couple of days, Fulton County caught them harvesting the cornfield there. So harvesting is in full swing right now, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. We've shown this graphic a few times already, just talking about the precipitation, the changes in precipitation with the new normals that came out earlier this year. Basically, they dropped the 80s and added the teens to the 30-year normals, something they do every 10 years. And no surprise for October, it is the new averages are wetter and warmer for pretty much the entire state. So it's kind of been a trend lately, having wet falls around here. So going in and looking at the current conditions, past 7 days, we have seen quite a bit of rain across central Kentucky. A lot of that came last night. I know here in Georgetown, we had a lot of rain and quite a bit of lightning last night. If you look out Western Kentucky and Eastern Kentucky, a little bit drier the past week, but you still see that they still have, everybody's gotten at least a ½ inch of rain, which is a good thing, keeping that soil moisture up. We expand that out to the past 30 days. And again, you can see that I-65 corridor, and then over to the bluegrass have been very wet. A couple 7-inch numbers up there, Bardstown, and down in, that's Clinton County, down on the Tennessee border. I think that's 9 inches there in south of Bowling Green there. It's just been really wet. I mean, that's a big number for any month of the year, but especially for the fall, this is our driest time of the year. So it's pretty impressive to see that much rain. But like I said, the past few years, that seems to be a common theme. Getting some, either it seems like it's two extremes, either really dry like we saw in 2016, 2019, or very wet. Again, if you got Eastern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, a little on the drier side, but again, still 2.5, 3 inches of rain. So they're still getting some good rains, just not quite to normal. If we expand it out to 60 days, there's a lot of color on this map, a lot of warm colors. It's been very wet across most of the state. See some places, Barron County, 17 inches, have 14 inches up by Frankfort, Shelby County. Just a lot of rain. If you go out to Western Kentucky, you see some smaller numbers, only 5, 6, 7 inches rain, which, I would say they're dry, but really that's about normal. It's just they haven't been crazy wet like the rest of the state. They've only been around normal precipitation wise. And if you go out to the 90 days, just warm colors everywhere. The whole state has been wet. Again, look at numbers. Barron County, 22 inches, 19 inches down in McCreary County. Just some really big numbers for 90-day period. It's just been another wet summer. So, and looking at the percent of normal, like I said, at 30 days, see Western Kentucky a little on the dry side. Nothing horrific. Not going to be seeing that show up on the drought monitor or anything like that. But just a little on the dry side. And once you get out to 60 and 90 days, very wet for most state. A couple pockets here and there of below normal precipitation, but for the most part, very wet up in the Shelby County area for the 60-day mark. You're looking at, I believe that's 300% of normal. So a pretty impressive numbers there. So looking at temperatures, for the most part, Kentucky's been about normal for September, maybe a little bit above normal, just a degree or so. If you get up by the Ohio River, you're looking more 2 to 4 degrees, but nothing too out of the ordinary. And if you break that down by highs and lows, the high temperatures for Kentucky have actually been a little below normal, especially in southern and southeastern Kentucky. It's been the nighttime lows that have been warmer than normal, pretty much statewide, except for right along the Tennessee border there. It's been warmer than normal at night, which again has been an occurring theme, not just in Kentucky, but really across a good portion of the eastern and midwestern United States throughout, going back several summers. It's become kind of a common thing nowadays. With all the rain, as expected, you see above normal soil moisture numbers for this pretty much the entire state. This time of year is again when we expect to see our driest soils of the year before we start getting recharges in the late fall and into winter. So really we're already doing ahead of the game, already got plenty of soil moisture in the ground. So that is looking pretty good. Looking at some of the soil moisture probes from the Kentucky Mesonet, on the left, we have Graves and Clark County, and that's going back to July 1st. And those are what you want to see during the summer. Every time that surface soil moisture starts to drop, another rain event comes through and bumps it back up. And as a result, you see some of those deeper levels staying high. So they never get depleted. So that's really what you want to see for optimal agricultural growth. If you look on the right, Carroll County and Hardin County, you see there late July and early August, they had a little drier, nothing too crazy, but you see especially up in Carroll County that top 2 inches got a little dry. And then you see as we've got into September, we've gotten into that wetter pattern, and you can see those soil moisture numbers have come up significantly. So evaporative demand, this is back from the September 30th. This is the last time they updated it. You can see for the last week in September, it was the atmosphere was a little thirstier than normal for that time of year. But again, this is looking at on average for that time of year. So the average demand is a lot lower at the end of September than it is, say, the middle of July. So it's kind of one of those things where the EDI is just going to be dropping as we go into the fall, especially now that we're getting towards the end of the growing season. Temperatures are cooler, so just not pulling the soil moisture out as much. If we look at the 1 month scale for the month of September, about normal. And you see down north of us, it was higher up in Ohio and Indiana, and down in the deep south, it was where it's been very wet as well, below normal demand for moisture. Current 7-day average stream flows, looking good. The greens are your normal flows, and then the blues are your above normal flows, and you can see nothing but greens and blues. Again, as wet as we've been, that's what you'd expect. Even out in the quote unquote drier areas of western and eastern Kentucky, still great flow. So it's what we want to see. This is the driest time of year, lowest average flow. So we are in good shape. Expand that out to 28 days. So still in great shape, still lots of blues and greens on this map, no yellows or reds anywhere. So that's exactly what we want to be seeing. Current flooding, as of right now, there is no flooding across the state. I think there is a little bit of flash flooding on the North Fork of the Elkhorn last night in Scott in Franklin County, but it wasn't anything major. So, but all the current stream gauges are below flood stage at this point in time. Looking at the U.S. Drought Monitor, as you would expect, Kentucky is clear. There is a little bit of D0 up in Indiana, up by the Cincinnati area, and that's kind of a relic of a bigger area of D0, and it hasn't been erased yet. They haven't, probably next week with the rain that fell last night in that area as well. So, but if you zoom out to the whole U.S., you can see everything east of the Mississippi, except for a couple places like Maine and up around Chicago, no drought. I mean, the eastern U.S., is doing pretty good. And if you go across the Mississippi, it's the exact opposite. There's a few pockets of no drought, and the rest of it is in drought, and it has been for much of the year. It's a pretty historic drought in that area, as I'm sure you've all heard. But for us, we're in pretty good shape going into the fall and winter. And here's the drought change map for the past 4 weeks. And you can see up in Indiana, you can see where there's been a 1-class improvement where a lot of that D0 is erased. And if you look out to the west again, you can see where the drought conditions have been moving eastward into Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, Iowa. Again, nothing we're going to have to worry about anytime in the near future. But it's it's definitely something to keep an eye on just because of what's going on out there. But really for us, we are in good shape in terms of drought. Storm impacts, storm reports for the past 30 days. September was pretty quiet. We had one storm system that came through on the 22nd of September that we had some wind damage in southeastern Kentucky. We had a few isolated flash flood events. I know the one in Bardstown hit right during the annual Bourbon Festival, and that created kind of a mess. But all, I said, we've had maps up in previous months where the whole map's just covered. And so it was a pretty quiet month. Now getting to the ag impacts. Right now, like I said, we are in the middle of harvest season. It is about 50% harvested right now, which is behind the 5-year average. So it's a little bit late, but I don't think that's too big of an issue right now. Soybeans are 25% harvested, and that's just about average, just a tiny bit over the 5-year average. Also, winter wheat has been starting to get planted. 8% of the winter wheat has been planted, and that's why the having that soil moisture is so important, because to germinate, those seeds need moisture. And while Western Kentucky, where there is a lot of winter wheat, they are a little drier. Having, a half inch, 3/4 inch of rain this time of year, that's going to do great things for the soil moisture. So there should be plenty of soil moisture available, even if we have a dry week coming up. There still should be plenty of soil moisture for the winter wheat, and also any pasture renovations going on this time of year. So really no concerns with that. Crop conditions, we are looking at crops are mostly in the good category. The last report I saw from the USDA was that the corn crop for Kentucky was expected to be a record harvest this year in terms of yield. And soybeans were supposed to be about on par with what they were last year, which was a record year. So that is good news to hear for both corn and soybean producers, that they're going to have, in terms of bushels per acre, it's going to be record years, close to record years. Also, this past spring's winter wheat, those final numbers came out for in September, and this was a record year for winter wheat harvests as well. So agriculture wise, it's been a very good year. And if you look down that bottom left corner, we have the top 10 wettest summers on record, and 2021 was the 10th wettest summer on record for Kentucky. So that's definitely helped have the nice crops this year. Lots of rain. Really wasn't hot this year either, so really good conditions for crops. Also interesting to note, 5 of the top 10 wettest summers have been in the past 10 years, and this is a record going back 130 years or so. So that's pretty impressive. So it's definitely been a trend to have wet summers around here the past 10 years. Also, we're in October, so it's time to start talking about freezes and the end of the growing season. For Kentucky, you can see on the bottom right, we have the list here of dates, but for Kentucky, end of October into the beginning of November is when we see our first freeze on average. And that's gotten about a week later than it was 20 years ago. But so we should see that by the end of the month. That's when we're going to start seeing the right average time for the last freeze. Probably not going to see an early freeze this year. We'll get to that when we look at the outlooks, but probably not in the cards for an early freeze this year. Looking ahead to the next week, looking at the quantitative precipitation forecast for the next 7 days, you see some precipitation, especially out in eastern Kentucky, and I think a lot of that is what is expected to fall today, as that low pressure is still spinning around here. After that, it looks like we're going to dry out. Could have some showers Monday and Tuesday, but all in all, it should be, after we get through today, it should be a drier week, which is something that's probably needed, especially for the harvest. It's probably been a little too wet for some places. The corns, you especially need the corn to dry out. So some farmers might have already been starting to use dryers to help dry the corn and prevent it from molding. So definitely something they're probably looking forward to. And also, if it's too muddy to get into the field, you can't harvest. So some dry weather is definitely needed. 6 to 10 day outlooks. On the left is the temperature outlook, and you can see Kentucky is likely to have above normal temperatures at the 6 to 10 day period, along with the entire eastern half of the United States. Going to be a range of high pressure over the eastern U.S. and then a big trough over the western U.S. And as a result, you're going to have a above normal chance of precipitation right there along that borderline there, which is right over part of the area that's getting hit by the drought. So that's going to be a welcome sight, especially in places like the Dakotas, where we recharge our soil moisture and groundwater all winter long. There, the soil freezes, and once it's frozen, it tends to stay frozen all winter long, and that kind of cuts off any recharge. So this is actually their prime recharge time, is the fall. So that's going to be it's too late to help this year's crops, but it's going to go help next year and help them out, hopefully have some soil moisture and some groundwater recharge for next spring. But for us, it's going to be Eastern Kentucky near normal chances for precipitation. And as you go west, some leaning towards the above normal precipitation, but not a strong signal. The further west into the plains you get to where the stronger signal is. Throughout the 8 to 14 days, still in that above normal temperature area, but not as quite as strong a signal as that. I think that ridge is expected to start breaking down sometime in the middle to later October. So it's kind of showing there. But so a little less confidence about it being warmer. Probably still going to be above normal temperatures, at least that week of the 14th. And for the precipitation, a slight tongue of above normal ability going into the western half of the state, but not really a strong signal anywhere for whether it's going to be above, below, or normal precipitation. And then looking out for the month of October, again, a good signal for above normal temperatures. And kind of right there, the western half of the state is in that above normal chance, slightly above normal chance for precipitation. And then normal conditions or normal chances, I should say, in Eastern Kentucky. Though some places in central and southern Kentucky probably have already hit their average precipitation for the month of October already, just from the rains last night. But overall, just not a strong signal for the entire month of October. Looking ahead towards the fall and into winter, El Nino, or not El Nino, La Nina is going to be coming into play again this year. We had La Nina last year, and it's not uncommon to have what they call a double dip, where we have back-to-back years. There is a La Nina watch out currently, and there's pretty strong confidence that we're going to have a La Nina this fall and winter. And if you look at the top right corner, that kind of shows what's to be expected around the globe. For the U.S. and our area, typically the southern U.S. tends to be dry, and then right over the Ohio Valley, there's a wet signal. But with it being it's anticipated to be a mild La Nina, not very strong one this year, and you can see that the top right there, where there is a lot of confidence that there is going to be a La Nina, but it's staying above that -1, so it's going to be a weak La Nina. So with that, it might not be quite as a strong of push for that wetter and drier signals in the U.S., especially if the NO and NOA come into play. They can kind of override the La Nina, especially a weak La Nina, and kind of change the weather patterns around here. So with that in mind, the seasonal outlook for October, November, and December, which is going to be taking some of that La Nina into account, pretty much most of the U.S. except for that northern tier up in the Midwest and Northwest U.S. that has a signal for above normal temperatures. As for precipitation, the southern U.S. dry, but that above normal precipitation, it's kind of pushed up from the normal La Nina location from the Ohio Valley up into the Great Lakes instead. So, and we're in at equal chances. So it could be dry, it could be wet, it could be normal. There's just not a good signal for what we're going to have here for the fall. All right, looking at our stream flow outlook for the month of October, the Ohio River Forecast Center is predicting stream flows for the most part to be above normal, and a few normals over in the Leviza Fork area in Eastern Kentucky. Not really surprised considering where we are now. So yeah, and then again, that's a good thing to have. We're going to have above normal flows. So something we definitely like to have that much more than below normal flows this time of year. But we can have flooding, and looking at the seasonal flood risk outlook, which is for October, November, and December. The orange squares mean there is a greater than 25% chance of minor flooding, and the red squares mean that there's a greater than 25% chance for moderate flooding. And you can see there's a few places that they do have that for Kentucky. The Barron River and Lower Green River area, they do have some orange in it and one red square in there. And also over on the main stem of the Kentucky River below Winchester, or above Winchester, going from Beattyville to Winchester, there is a increased likelihood of flood this fall. And then the rest of the state is pretty much in the less than 25% flood risk change. So definitely the potential for flooding. Obviously that depends on how precipitation plays out the rest of the fall, but the risk is there. Looking at our wildland fire potential outlook, we should be starting fire season here month, so it's becoming more of a something to keep an eye on. Right now we are in the normal risk category, with the deep south all being below where it's been very wet. So but we have been wet, so it's probably, but we are still listed as the normal range, so something to keep an eye on as we move into the fall and get into fire season. So in summary, temperatures for September, not October, averaged almost a degree above normal, and precipitation ranged from roughly normal to well above normal, with the wettest parts being in wettest conditions being in central Kentucky, while western and eastern Kentucky were closer to normal or a little below normal. Really not a lot of extreme weather events this month, with the exception of that one storm system that came through on the 22nd that brought some high winds to southeastern Kentucky. We are expecting above normal temperatures and for October, and it's likely to be normal precipitation, maybe a little above normal precipitation for the western half of the state. And we are expecting La Nina to resurface again this fall as we move into winter. So like I said, the next webinar is scheduled for November 4th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. I believe, like I said, Megan Shergowski is going to be the host for next month, I believe. So if you ever have any questions about this or anything related to the webinar, you can always contact Megan. She is the current acting state climatologist at Western Kentucky University. You can contact Matt Dixon at the UK Ag Weather Center, or you can contact Bill Caldwell or myself at the Kentucky Division of Water. And that is all for today. So I will turn it back over to Megan to answer anybody's questions.
Thank you for an awesome presentation, Chip. Yes, as he said, I will be presenting next month. So for right now, if we have any questions, feel free to unmute or type into the chat box and we can have a discussion. It's always a quiet group, but it's always quieter when we've been wet. So, all right, if there are no questions, we can go ahead and wrap up. Thank you so much for being here, and I will get an email out for next month, and I look forward to seeing you then. If you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to get in touch with one of us, and we'll be happy to chat with you. Have a good day.